If you're like me and you suffer from terminally online disorder, you'll recognize Nyan Neko Sugar Girls as a foundational piece of 2010's internet culture. If you're somehow unfamiliar, Nyan Neko Sugar Girls is an animated web series with outstanding visual fidelity, incredible audio mixing,
What seems to be the problem?
and unique storylines. Boasting an incredible 12 million accumulated views on YouTube, you could argue that Nyan Neko Sugar Girls is one of the most successful completed web animation series of all time. But here's something you might not know. Nyan Neko Sugar Girls wasn't created in a vacuum. It's actually a satirical parody of an early internet community that thrived on making fan-made anime. This community was known as the Fanime scene, which is exactly what it sounds like, Fanime, fan-made anime. Unfortunately, as Nyan Neko Sugar Girls gained popularity and infamy, it ended up placing a target on the back of the very community that inspired it. Malicious content farmers, often grown-ass adults mind you, began raiding and pillaging the once tight-knit Fanime world, using it as fodder for their Let's React and cringe compilation content. Ugh, I really don't miss cringe culture. With Nyan Neko Sugar Girls nostalgia content making a big comeback lately, it got me thinking, how did the Fanime community come to exist in the first place? How did the rise of shows like Nyan Neko Sugar Girls impact and ultimately change the very community that inspired it? And considering the high standards and expectations of art and animation online today, could a small, supportive community for artists of all skill levels ever thrive again? Let's take a deep dive into the internet past and find out.
Let's repeat your soul.
But first, welcome. I'm Amber, a professional storyboard artist for the animation industry. I'm also working on an indie game, and I also make video essays in my spare time. Yeah, I know, I'm a pretty busy bee. I like to talk about anime, early internet culture, obscure retro and indie games, alt fashion, basically whatever I feel like yapping about for an hour. If any of that sounds good to you, I'd love if you went ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. But for now, let's just get into it. While anime-inspired projects by amateur artists have existed as long as anime has itself, the modern concept of Fanime is generally considered to have emerged around late 2005 to early 2006, right around the time when YouTube itself was first getting started. It seems there are a few different contenders for the title of the first Fanime, but the one I saw mentioned most frequently was Eternal, created by MelodyFan12, with the first clips first appearing as early as December 2005. Dubbed the Queen of Fanimation, MelodyFan12 created one full episode of her Fanime, as well as many animated transformation sequences for all of her characters. Her henshin animations completely captivated her viewers and, probably unintentionally, sparked an entire online web animation movement. Following in Melody's footsteps, Diamond88 released Elemental Goddess, another Sailor Moon-inspired fanime, with 2 full 20-minute episodes and many more animated shorts. Other big-name early contributors to the fanime community included Mojo Crystal Tokyo's Tokyo Crystal Mew series, that's a tongue twister, Kazikaz's Diamond Mew Mew, and Elite Paranoid's Take It Sevenfold, which unfortunately now appears to be fully lost to media. It's kind of a real bummer because apparently Take It Sevenfold had 20 full episodes, each 10 to 15 minutes long, which is insanely impressive for 2007, or really any year. As you can see, a lot of fanime were inspired by pre-existing anime like Tokyo Mew Mew or Sailor Moon, sort of like animated fan fiction. And what really set fanime apart visually from other web animation at the time was that they were usually created using rudimentary tools like MS Paint and Windows Movie Maker instead of Flash, and usually made by kids as young as 8 years old. I gotta be honest, when I was 8, I was just making like bad Sonic sprite comics, edgy goth OCs, and cool Neopets webpage layouts. So the idea that kids in my age group were just casually producing full-on animated series by themselves is pretty freaking astonishing to me, actually. Keep in mind, this was the early internet too, like literally 2005. They had little to no tutorials using janky tools that were absolutely not made for the task at hand. I can't even imagine. It seems to me that because of these limitations, the fanime community didn't focus as much on the technical quality of the animations, but rather on the effort and passion that went into creating them. As stated in the Fanime Wiki's How Not to Ruin Your Fanime guide, unless you have money, you ain't gonna get a team of animators to work on storyboards, to do the basic animations, to do the in-between animation, or the scanning. So forget about trying to expect that kind of animation. Try to make your Fanime visually appealing, even if you're new at this animation thing. Show people you know how to draw. Don't keep it in some crappy box where everything and everyone just looks like cardboard cutouts. While the tone of the guide as a whole can come off as a bit harsh, the underlying sentiment is clear. Nobody's expecting professional level animation, but pour your effort into what you can create with your current skills and resources. I find this mindset really refreshing compared to a lot of modern digital art communities. A lot of Fanime that were celebrated by the community may not have had the highest quality art or animation, but within this community, they were still art worth respecting and were truly valued for the drive, passion, and effort behind the work. And look, sure, I'm absolutely positive that there were elitists and haters floating around back then too, but in all of my research for this video, I've come across far more positivity and encouragement in the archives of the community than anything else. And well,
I just think they're neat.
the Fanime creators thrived peacefully in their own little corner of the internet until the dark year of 2009, when the community's first existential hurdle reared its ugly head.
Hey, it's Fred!
Fred Fiddlehorn's sudden success completely changed YouTube and internet culture as a whole. That could honestly be a whole video essay on its own. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. Anyway, after seeing the insane virality that Fred had achieved in a radically short time, YouTube quickly became flooded with more content creators than ever trying to recreate his success, which according to many historical accounts from the Fanime community, really posed a challenge for their space. The sudden influx of new content creators spammed YouTube in a way that they hadn't seen before, making it way more difficult for Fanime creators to find each other. And remember, this was before the algorithmic era of the internet. If content wasn't properly tagged, you just weren't finding it. As a result, platforms like Fanime World, a PHPBB style forum, and FanimeTube, a Fanime-centric social media website, were created to centralize the community. There was also Fanime Update, which was a weekly podcast that kept the community updated with news, new releases, and challenges to participate in. Despite the shifting internet landscape, the Fanime community remained determined to carve out a space for themselves and to continue having a place to create and share what they were passionate about. While many of these early Fanime websites are no longer active, the Fanime Realm website continues to serve as a giant repository of Fanime history and titles, and it has been an incredibly valuable resource for this video. Kibigisi, the creator of Fanime Realm, has also made their own video essay about Fanime that goes a lot more in depth into the community's history and nuances. I've linked both the site and the video below in the description if you're curious and want to dive deeper into the Fanime world from an actual Fanime creator's perspective. Looking back as an outsider, it's clear to me that the Fanime community offered young artists of all skill levels a unique space to thrive. It was a really unique place for early internet artists to tell stories through animation, even with limited resources or no experience. And despite being super small and niche, the community was welcoming, passionate, and supportive of creators at all levels. Until in 2010, Soap Opera 46 uploaded Nyan Neko Sugar Girls Episode 1, and the anime side of the internet was forever changed.
Yeah, rar. I have stripped you of your freedom.
Was it real? Was it a troll? Back then, nobody seemed to know, but it was undeniably hilarious. Adding to its reach was the rise of Let's React style content, where YouTubers of all walks of life would watch the show blind and, well, bash on it for laughs.
Who's applauding?
Well, they didn't bother to take out the DDR announcer.
I think that was intentional. They wanted to make it seem like people were actually uploading the video.
Oh, what's wrong with your neck? Sugoi desu. Sayonara nya.
How are they funny? They're not. It wasn't funny. Please tell me. Oh my gosh, please tell me it sounds like that on purpose. This is not right. This is not right.
Alright, let's be real here. Anyone with a single functioning brain cell and even the slightest amount of anime awareness could tell that Nyan Neko Sugar Girls was an obvious parody from the start. From the very self-aware jokes in the episodes,
There's freedom in this country. This is America. Japan.
to the exaggerated persona that the creator, Yoli-chan, portrayed online.
Hey everyone, YouTube! This is Yori-chan, and do you know my new favorite anime song?
To the fact that the comically large-breasted protagonist was literally named Rack. It's never been subtle, you guys. But for those outside of online art and anime communities, Nyan Neko Sugar Girls was often taken at face value, spawning an ironic fandom. It's so bad it's good, they'd say. Ahead of its time, they'd say. A subversive masterpiece, they'd say. The internet was filled with memes, fan art, and heck, even more parody-style fanime projects like Sugoi Quest for Kokoro or Senpai Club that followed in Nyan Neko Sugar Girls' path, hoping to capture the same lightning in a bottle. As the Nyan Neko Sugar Girls content mill waned, either during the dry spells during episode releases or following the series finale, the once small and insular fanime community found itself in the middle of a content vacuum, as reaction content creators sought to keep riding the wave. Authentic, non-parody fanime that had existed for years prior to Nyan Neko Sugar Girls' existence started attracting attention from the same cringe content enjoying crowd. And in the same way that they mocked and engaged with the obvious parody project Nyan Neko Sugar Girls, they began tearing apart the earnest passion projects made by 9-year-olds years prior.
I don't think legs work that way. She's like cross-eyed. Are you fucking kidding me?
Slam Fire's sister.
Slam Fire.
That sounds sexual as fuck.
I'm 17 years old.
And I have lots of sex. I know a job you can do.
Nice marshmallows.
I feel like the visuals are
that was a penis.
Except if this is the highlight of your childhood, you should probably just
you should probably look into killing yourself.
This led to a flood of cruel and hateful comments, often directed at creators who previously only saw a handful of interactions from people directly within their community of peers. They were told horrible things like,
I'm speechless. Was that supposed to look like a 5-year-old drew it?
Shitty 10-year-old animations. I feel like my soul has been torn from my body.
Fanime are made by trolls, right? The people making these aren't expecting them to be taken seriously, right? Right?
I'm gonna get cancer from watching all of these animes.
You know the artwork is bad when it makes Nyan Neko Sugar Girls look good in comparison.
Why are almost all of the creators so nice? It makes it hard to make fun of them. So maybe don't? That's your choice? Maybe don't do that? And in the cruelest irony, the parody series received more positive attention than the authentic fanime that so obviously inspired it. And sure, Nyan Neko Sugar Girls got its fair share of hate too, but I'm honestly not really bothered by that. It's clear to me that this was all a part of the Nyan Neko Sugar Girl creators' plan, and it worked. After all, even over 15 years later, the Nyan Neko Sugar Girls fandom is louder than ever. If my For You pages are anything to go by, Nyan Neko Sugar Girls cosplay, fan art, and memes are very much back in style here in 2025, likely fueled by the wider trend of nostalgia for the early internet and technology that's been going on for the last few years. Someone has also wisely capitalized on this resurgence of interest by releasing official Nyan Neko Sugar Girls merchandise, including a full series DVD and an official Rakuchan plushie, both of which I will proudly own by the time this video goes live.
And this is where I put it. If I had one!
So yes, the mockery and the punching down of Nyan Neko Sugar Girls were all a part of the intended experience. The creator and everyone else was in on the joke, or at least they thought they were. But all of the series that inspired it, like Tokyo Crystal Mew, Elemental Goddess, and Eternal, those were made earnestly. Those were made by young, passionate kids just trying to make something out of their love for art and anime alone. And yet, they were met with much worse vitriol than Nyan Neko Sugar Girls ever received, and obviously absolutely none of the same accolades. The whole situation feels a lot like grown-ass adults walking into a first grade classroom uninvited and mocking the artwork on the walls just for laughs. They have no personal connection to the community, no reason to be there in the first place, and most importantly, they're taking the work completely out of context. Hell, I'd even argued that the majority of us are taking Nyan Neko Sugar Girls out of context. While the initial read of the so bad it's good style humor is easily understood by outsiders, the reality is that every Nyan Neko Sugar Girls joke is an exaggeration of features found in early fanime, thanks to the age of the creators and the technical limitations of the early 2000s. Take, for example, the opening sequences that take up half of the episode's total runtime. Or the hilariously inconsistent character models.
Moshi Moshi, I'm doing just fine.
Don't spoil my moment.
Or the offensively peaking audio that blasts your eardrums out.
I'm sorry to tell you this, Raku-chan, but...
Hello, sleepyhead.
It's clear to me that the creator behind Nyan Neko Sugar Girls was deeply familiar with the Fanime community, and if you ask me, likely an earnest participant of it under another username. At least I like to believe that's the case, because it would be a huge bummer if the creator's intention was just to bully and mock 9-year-olds from the start. If anything, Nyan Neko Sugar Girls feels like a period piece to me. It's a love letter wrapped in satire and parody to the small corner of the internet that helped inspire it. But due to its unprecedented virality at the time, what started as an inside joke for a tiny corner of the internet evolved into open mockery by people who had never been a part of it. When I was a young artist myself, I was part of a similar tight-knit art community online. I had just started my foray into digital art, and I had made a bunch of friends that were at similar stages in their artistic journey, eager to support me as I learned and I grew. And I still remember the first hate comment I ever received. I had posted a side-by-side comparison on my Twitter showing my progress after a few months of learning how to do stuff with my tablet. When out of the blue, somebody I had never interacted with, an artist that was a good bit older than me, started tearing me down out of nowhere. They said a lot of different things, but the core message was, this is not something to be proud of. There's no improvement here at all. We eventually made peace as adults, and we're even mutuals now. But I still remember the sting of those words. For the first time in my life, I didn't want to share my artwork anymore. I wanted to hide it, and maybe even hide myself. It made me realize that for many people engaging with art online, the journey of growth and having fun just aren't enough. If it's not perfect and professional and exactly to their specific taste, it's cringe. It's bad. And evidently, they feel they have the right to bash and harass you about it. Did you know harassing people you don't know online is certified weirdo behavior? Following the cool and radical trend of adults turning the art of 9-year-olds into circuses to be gawked at, many Fanime series disappeared off of the face of the internet. A community that once inspired young artists has largely faded into lost media, with much of the work being hidden or deleted to shield it from the cringe culture vultures foaming at the mouth for fresh targets to bully. What's that? Do I hear the sound of fingers furiously typing? Amber, one might argue.
Isn't criticism necessary, nay, required for growth? Aren't they just helping these lost poor young artists by telling them that their art's so bad that it made themselves?
Certified weirdo behavior. Seriously, if you're here genuinely trying to defend hate comments or unsolicited art criticism from strangers who have nothing but bad intentions, go ahead and hit that back button for me. Go watch another video. You're not welcome here. You suck. I hate you. There's a time and place for everything. Constructive criticism on an art piece where it was directly asked for? Good. Constructive criticism in a formal arts education environment? Real good. But a grown man showing up uninvited to comment, "This video was so bad it made me drink bleach," on a 9-year-old's passion project? And look, I'm not here to say that all Fanime are Renaissance pieces that deserve the same virality and dedicated fan bases as Nyan Neko Sugar Girls has, or even the same accolades that professional scale anime has. Of course not. Most of them are pretty objectively bad by most people's standards, including their own creators. But is being bad such a bad thing? Fun fact about me, I was working on an independent animated show for years. It was called Nocturne. It was kind of like a blend between Gem and the Holograms and the X-Files. We're a pacifist glam rock vampire and a vampire hunter who really didn't want to be one. She wanted to be a rock star instead. It's not a phase, Mom, I swear. Teamed up to try and prevent an upcoming vampiric massacre. It had action, horror, and enemies to lovers style romance, and I really enjoyed working on it. It was a webcomic at first, and then I storyboarded an entire 25-minute pilot episode. Hell, I even got some shots to full cleanup in color. But a few years ago, I decided to put the project to rest. Why? It just became so overwhelming. I kept finding myself redoing the work I had already done over and over and over again to make sure that the style and quality level was consistent across the entire episode. And frankly, I'm just too much of a perfectionist now. See, as an adult and a professional animation artist to boot, in my mind, my work must be flawless, or I risk my credibility, my job, my livelihood. If the work I upload is not perfect, I'll be homeless and starving and die. The stakes just feel really high, okay? But when I look back at the early Fanime community in the 2000s, I remember a time before that perfectionism consumed me. I remember when I created art just because I loved doing it, imperfections and all. Back then, I posted art constantly, 2 to 3 drawings a day. I wrote fan fiction, I made original songs, made music videos, I made entire video games, and I don't know, it just makes me feel Inspired? If I could channel just a fraction of that fearless creativity and passion that the Fanime community had into the work that I do now, imagine what I could achieve. If I cared less about how it looked, if I cared less about things being perfect, and more about just finishing my stories and getting them out there, what kind of artist would I be? Sure, people may mock the inconsistent art or character designs in Nyan Neko Sugar Girls or in Fanime like Diamond Mew Mew, but guess what? Those episodes are finished. They're out there. Their stories were told, touching people in ways that still resonate with them today. Meanwhile, my indie animated project, with many of the same flaws, but maybe at a higher quality, is collecting dust on my hard drive and may never see the light of day. The truth is, I think a lot of people are afraid of authenticity, especially in the 2010s, an era where cringe culture and liking things ironically kind of became the norm. Nyan Neko Sugar Girls presented a body of work inspired by authentic passion art and fandom behavior from childhood in a way that could be enjoyed as an unserious joke. And by doing so, made it more comfortably enjoyable and palatable for a wide-scale audience. Fanime like Tokyo Crystal Mew are often just as funny and self-aware as Nyan Neko Sugar Girls, but because they were made seriously and in earnest and not as an obvious satirical parody, they're not a masterpiece, no. They were delegated as something to just ignore or push aside at best, or make a circus of at worst. Even in recent video essays and content about Nyan Neko Sugar Girls, the broader Fanime community and movement that inspired it is usually overlooked, which I guess is better than the let's make fun of 9-year-olds making animation for fun alternative, but I'm not gonna lie, it kind of bums me out. Maybe I'm naively optimistic, but I wish that more people could see this little pocket of internet history the way that I do. Not as a free-for-all of mockery and cheap laughs, but as a reminder of when we were young and made art just for the joy of creating it, without fear or expectations. What if, instead of judging these old Fanime as objectively good or bad, we viewed them in context, as animated series created by young amateurs using the Stone Age equivalent of the tools that professionals use? Would you view them as something bad, something to laugh at, or something inspiring? Eternal. Yuka's world is turned upside down when a mutated dog—
Who you calling a mutated dog?
A magical creature introduces itself and reveals that she was born with the power of an Eternal. What exactly is an Eternal? That is not immediately clear from the only episode ever made, but the series seems to be like an OC fanfiction of Sailor Moon. Coined in the fandom as the first Fanime series, and the one that inspired most Fanime following it, the creator Melody Fan 12 is dubbed the Queen of Fanimation. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty impressed with some of the work they did in the transformation sequences. Considering the age of the creator and the tools they were using, MS Paint, Windows Movie Maker, that's crazy. Transformation sequences can be pretty tricky to do even for professionals in the best of situations. I'm also pretty impressed with the amount of work they put into the little minute details, like the little commercial break section. You can tell this person really wanted an authentic feel for this project. And I actually think that the story pacing doesn't feel too bad. It's cliche and derivative, sure, but the creator was like 9. The story's pretty easy to follow, all things considered. And scattered in between, I think there's honestly some pretty impressive animation and cinematography work. This is way more impressive than what I was making at 9 years old. Tokyo Crystal Mew. Toya Aoyama, the daughter of Masaya and Ichigo, and her best friend Mina Shirogane, the daughter of Ryo and Minto, are attacked by a monster. They learn from Ryo's cousin that they have the right DNA to become Mew Mews themselves, and are recruited into participating in Mew Project 2.0, which has been created to fight off an alien force known as the Seacon Anima. Eventually, they meet 8 other Mew Mews, some of whom are also the daughters of the original team members. Apparently, Tokyo Crystal Mew was one of the first Fanime to ever actually call itself Fanime. It was also the first Fanime to use Tokyo Mew Mew as an inspiration source instead of Sailor Moon, leading to a lot more Tokyo Mew Mew inspired Fanime in its wake. The first episode of the series is genuinely so hilarious.
Of course not. Okay.
Crystal power, activate. Now.
Okay! I am not making fun of the show at all. I want to be completely clear about that. But it is so funny in a way that's very charming and nostalgic. Like, oh, to be young, making stuff with no idea what I'm doing again. That kind of vibe. Unlike Eternal, I get the impression that this series relied less heavily on referencing or tracing pre-existing anime shots, at least in some places. And so this Fanime actually feels a lot more amateurish to me in cinematography and animation, but I don't mean that insultingly. In fact, I think this adds to the charm and humor and what makes this a Fanime classic. From 3-minute long monologues with just a 3-frame loop of animation,
Mew, as we have told you,
to self-aware ad breaks, to just recoloring Tokyo Mew Mew footage in lieu of making new drawings. There are a lot of things that make this Fanime pure comedic genius. If you watch any of these Fanime in full, I really recommend Tokyo Crystal Mew. It's super nostalgic and a very comedic look back into what being a weeaboo in the early 2000s was like. Interestingly, Mojo Crystal Tokyo went on to make many more Fanime-style web animation series, many of which she completed. It's really incredible to see how much her art and animation improved as she continued to make these web animations, and really inspiring. In the modern era, Mojo Crystal Tokyo went on to rebrand and stream under the VTuber name Kisaka Toriyama. But as of now, she has graduated and seems to be focusing more on her art and her small VTuber merchandising business. Diamond Mew Mew. Boasted as one of the longest running Fanimes to ever exist, with an impressive 13 completed episodes, I was really bummed to discover that initially, Diamond Mew Mew seemed to be lost media. I reached out to the creator, who now goes by Kazi Bliss, and not only did she provide me with access to all of the surviving episodes via an unlisted playlist, but she agreed to answer some questions via email about her experience with the Fanime community. Since I never participated in the community myself, I thought it would be nice if this video included some thoughts and experiences from one of the OG Fanime creators. You know, somebody who was actually there. So here's what Kazi had to say. Please ignore the fact that I'm in a completely different outfit. I had to record this part on a different day. I asked, what inspired you to get into making Fanime in the first place? Kazi replied, I first got into the Fanime scene around 2007, which would have made me around 11 or 12 years old. I was naturally obsessed with Tokyo Mew Mew. I watched the horrific 4Kids dub at first, and then borrowed the manga volumes from my local library, and then reread them on repeat. I then discovered YouTube and the Japanese dub, which eventually made me stumble across Fanime. Tokyo Crystal Mew was one of my biggest inspirations back then, and Kisaka became one of my strongest art idols, and still is. I didn't have any drawing experience when it came to the anime style, but after seeing all of these people animating shows, I felt inspired to make my own Mew Mew series to explore my writing endeavors in a new way. I thought, if they could do it, then so could I. I didn't have to care if it was good or not. I simply had fun creating the story. Without it, my artistic journey might have never happened. I asked, did people in your real life know about Diamond Mew Mew? Kazi replied, well, since I was a child with undiagnosed autism during high school, I didn't have many friends at all. All of my friends were within the Fanime community, and eventually they became real life friends where we would always meet up at conventions and birthdays, which I was very grateful for. I don't think my parents ever realized the extent of how influential Diamond Mew Mew ever managed to reach. They just knew that I liked drawing on the computer, but I never told them what I was making, and I never really showed it to them either. Despite being on the internet for the whole world to see, it was still a very personal thing for me, so I was fine with them not being too involved. I asked, how would you describe the Fanime community as a whole? Kazi replied, as a whole, I think the community was incredibly supportive. We would all watch each other's shows, comment, and voice act via audition videos. Of course, there were natural groups within the community, but we all interacted in some form with each other's content. At least that's how I felt. During the super early years, there was a trend where we were all making fake commercials for our shows that we'd put at the end of our episodes to help promote each other. I always thought that that was such a funny and wholesome idea, which helped to make the community feel even closer. Honestly, the community helped me through some really dark times. I'd never vocalize it, but I made so many amazing friends within it, to the point where I'm still in contact with a handful of them to this day. They really helped me to keep drawing, and I think I would have given up a long time ago if not for them. In fact, I had straight up stopped drawing during my college years starting around 2015 for 3 years, and it wasn't until an old Fanime friend reached out to me that I started drawing again. So even when you think you're far removed from the community, they still find ways of coming back to inspire and encourage you. I don't think I felt that way in any other community or creative space since, and it's something I miss greatly. I asked, how did the rise in popularity of troll Fanime like Nyan Neko Sugar Girls affect you and your experience in the Fanime community? Kazi replied, I genuinely never realized that Nyan Neko Sugar Girls was a troll Fanime until many years later, and by the time all of these were getting popular, I was no longer overly involved with the Fanime community. Honestly, I never had a problem with it. I personally found all of the troll Fanime entertaining, and I even created my own show called Magical Door-chan, and I low-key love the characters in that show. It made me feel like I was back in in 2008 without any fear of judgment. I think Fanime like that simply allows the creator to have fun, and I think that's the most important part of doing anything, regardless of what kind of people it might bring. During my early days of animating Diamond Mew Mew, I would get a lot of hate on the first episodes in particular because of how bad they were, and sometimes they got mistaken for a troll fanime or satire, even though I was taking them seriously, which wasn't great, but I pushed through that because of the level of enjoyment that it gave me. Meanwhile, with Magical Door-chan, it's not meant to be taken seriously at all, and I don't really care how people perceive it because it was a great stress relief to just goof around with it. That being said, when I find myself doom scrolling on TikTok and a random Nyan Neko Sugar Girls shorts pops up and I read the comments, it does give me a little bit of a bitter feeling. This was such a sacred part of my childhood, and to see how people outside of the community were reacting to it, troll or not, can certainly make me understand why it could be a problem. I think the Fanime community happened at the right time in history because if it began today, I don't think it would have been appreciated nearly half as much as it was back then, and it would have been harder to find each other, which makes it disheartening to think about. I asked, how has your time in the Fanime community influenced you in your adulthood? Kazi replied, I firmly believe I would not be the person that I am today without the Fanime community. They were truly the happiest years of my life, so naturally I would bring those feelings with me into adulthood. Regarding Diamond Mew Mew, I have tried to revive the series in many ways. Most recently, I've been working on a manga in the background called Diamond with updated character designs and a semi-original story. They became my comfort characters to draw, and whenever I look at them, it makes me think of how far I've really come. I really want to bring the girls back in some form because I think a lot of people from that era still remember the show and would happily look forward to that aspect of their childhood. However, I doubt I'll ever animate a show again anytime soon, simply due to the time constraints and perfectionism struggles. Relatable. My passion moved away from animating and landed on drawing, writing, and gaming. So much so that now I'm a variety VTuber streamer, where I can literally be in a suit I made from my own art. If I'm ever struggling with how my art looks, I think back to Diamond Mew Mew and remember how far I've come since then, and it really helps me to keep going. The fun thing about art is that you never stop evolving, and I continue to be inspired by anime like Tokyo Mew Mew, Cardcaptor Sakura, and Madoka Magica, as well as my old Fanime friends that I'm still in contact with, such as Rakusaku and Otbot. It also gave me a much better appreciation for animation as a whole. Sometimes when I'm watching anime, I can see an amazing scene and understand how impressive, to me at least, that would have been to accomplish. Animation still interests me, and it does make me sad that I no longer have the patience for it, but you know what they say never, and I hope that phase one day returns to me later in life. But if it doesn't, I'm content with what I do now. I asked, after everything, would you encourage young artists to participate in art communities like the Fanime community today? Kazi replied, definitely. It was my lifeline when I was younger. The encouragement from everybody around you helps to push you to get better and to adapt and evolve within your own artistic journey. The social aspect that came with making new friends was also inspiring, and it helps make the experience less lonely when you're in a creative space like that. Now that I'm an adult, I can certainly feel how much more lonely creating can be without a good support system in place. So I think that community-driven hobbies are a great thing. I imagine spaces like this would be so much larger now compared to the early 2000s because the internet was relatively new back then. However, I'm sure that there would be plenty of people eager to form bonds with you if you put yourself out there. I'm still experiencing this today in the VTubing scene. All it takes is having a little bit of faith in people. If you're able to find a community that genuinely interests you, I say go for it. Give it all you've got. You never know what you might get out of it or where it might lead. I had no idea how Fanime would impact my life when I posted that first episode, but I'm grateful that I did. I'm not gonna lie, when I first read Kazi's email back to me, I couldn't help but to tear up a little bit. Even though I wasn't in the Fanime community myself, it really took me back to my own early days in the tiny art community that I participated in. It made me remember how much it inspired me, how many friends I made along the way, and how it shaped me into the person that I am today. While Nyan Neko Sugar Girls obviously brought a lot of nasty and critical eyes to the Fanime community, it also brought genuine fans and aspiring creators to it as well. Knowing that people use the artwork of this community as quick content to laugh and gawk at stings even more when you put yourself into their shoes, and when you consider how foundational this community was to so many people's childhoods and their artistic journeys. But in the end, I feel grateful that Nyan Neko Sugar Girls was able to cast a light on this unique pocket of the internet that might have otherwise gone unseen. And I can only hope that as time goes on, people look back on it more nostalgically and endearingly than they did 15 years ago. Much to my delight, the Fanime community still appears to exist today, albeit in small pockets. New series and episodes continue to be uploaded to YouTube under the Fanime tag as recently as 2 weeks ago. There's also a large active Discord community, and a new channel called Fanime Station that seems to have picked up where the old Fanime Update podcast left off. As the internet continues to evolve and change, I'm suspecting that it's become a lot more difficult for Fanime creators to find each other, as the search results for Fanime are still heavily dominated by Nyan Neko Sugar Girls, Fanime reaction content, and now the Fanime Anime Convention. There are also, of course, many non-Fanime internet animation communities thriving today. From the indie animation space, which is largely made up of professional animation workers and animation students aiming to create studio quality shows independently, to the viral animation memes and trends on TikTok. I really enjoy these spaces too, and I've participated in them myself. But if I can be honest, they feel very different from the Fanime community. These newer communities are often driven by creating content for an audience of fans who appreciate animation, rather than participating in a space where the majority of their audience is made up of their peers, of fellow amateur artists and animators. And on the amateur note, these spaces are most often defined by the work of professionals, or at the very least making work to a professional quality level, leaving little room for the same types of young and passionate artists to find their place. While it's super exciting to me that animators and artists can monetize their creations and build independent audiences more easily now than ever, I really hope that beyond my limited scope of vision, that there are still places for younger or less experienced artists to experiment with their art, to grow safely and be supported and encouraged by their peers. I hope that these spaces, much like the early Fanime community, offer a safe environment, free from judgment and ridicule, where young creators can thrive without waiting to be compared to professionals with decades of experience by some random dude with a stick up his ass. Maybe these communities are tucked away in Discords or in hidden TikTok tags I'm not aware of, but no matter what, I just really hope they still exist, encouraging art spaces that inspire artists of all skill levels to create without fear. All things considered, I genuinely and unironically love Nyan Neko Sugar Girls. I do. I think it's funny, I think it's super nostalgic, and it takes me back to when I wrote storylines that rivaled the chaos of the Raku-chan rabies subplot. And while I wasn't a part of the Fanime community myself, but let's be real, if I knew about it, I totally would have been, and oh my god. I would have made so many Higurashi and Umineko Fanime, it would have been ridiculous. Read Umineko. And while I wasn't a part of the Fanime community myself, I have a deep appreciation for it, both in its past form and in the way that it's evolved now. It all reminds me to take myself a little less seriously and to remember why I'm creating art in the first place, to unapologetically enjoy the weird and dweeby things that I love, to reconnect with the feeling of making things just for myself and finding my people along the way instead of trying to please an algorithm. And if I'm being honest, I think a lot of people's resurged interest in Nyan Neko Sugar Girls stems from the same place, whether they realize it or not. I can only hope that from now on, when you celebrate the memory of Nyan Neko Sugar Girls, you take a moment to remember the passionate young artists who inspired it, and also take a moment to honor your own inner child, who still yearns to create art without fear or shame. What kind of art would you make if you had all of the time in the world and no fear of judgment? You might make a Fanime. Hey guys, thank you for watching the whole video. As you can see, I'm in a completely different setup now. A lot has changed in between this video and my last one. Let me know if you like this setup any better and if the audio and video quality is any better. I'm trying to do a few shorter video essays on simpler topics like this one in the next few weeks. Let me know if you vibe with it. If you haven't already, I would super love it if you hit that subscribe button down below and left a little comment about what you thought. I'm really trying to take this YouTube thing a little more seriously, and your feedback really gives me inspiration to keep it moving, even when I'm really busy with everything else I have going on. Keep making what you love, and I will see you guys next time.